Today we're going to be talking about dual processing theory as part of the learning and cognition subsection in the new psychology HL syllabus. So dual processing theory is really just categorizing your mental process into two systems of thinking, system 1 and system 2. So if we move into system 1 thinking is intuitive. It's your fast, unconscious, automatic responses based on whatever is in front of you presented at the moment. So these are really reactive thoughts that you have, and they're based on the experiences, and it focuses on what is seen directly in front of you but ignores the absent evidence that may also be there. System 1 is prone to errors because it has such short processing time, and also because our mind takes heuristics, which are a type of mental shortcut to work around a problem based on past established schemas. So maybe you're in an unfamiliar situation, but you rely on your past information with a similar situation to help you through it instead of actually considering the context that this one is in. System 2 thinking is rational thinking. It's more of your slow, conscious, controlled thinking about a situation when you're considering more of the outcomes on what is happening, and it's based on the consequences of your actions. So System 2 thinking works better with abstract concepts that you don't actually have a direct outcome to yet, because System 2 thinking uses conscious reasoning and logic. This makes System 2 thinking more reliable and accurate because you have more time to work around these processes and kind of consider the other scenarios as well as the other possible answers. But the downside is that it does take a longer time and it requires a lot more concentration and effort, and it puts a lot more cognitive load into your mind. So this is why humans tend to usually default to System 1 thinking when we can. Because humans are cognitive misers. Like, we seek out quick solutions that feel just okay in a scenario where we feel uncomfortable because it's just a lot easier and it requires a lot less energy. We use System 1 thinking to reduce the total amount of mental effort that we have in our brains, because if we have more mental effort, it takes a lot more energy to think out problems. So we generally direct to System 1 thinking instead. So one of the most interesting studies to demonstrate this is Wason's selection task back in 1966, where he would put a certain set of cards out and have a rule. And to the participants in this experiment, the rule is generally very simple. It says something along the lines of, if a card shows an even number on one face, then its opposite side is a certain color. So to logically check this rule, you would falsify all of the other options that this rule could encounter for. But because people usually divert to System 1 thinking, instead of actually checking through the rule and making sure each card matches that rule, you generally just go through and find the card that matches the rule directly according to its words, rather than thinking through the problem. So it demonstrates that under some kind of stress, and as well as just pressure to do things at a very fast rate, people will generally divert to System 1 thinking because it's just a lot easier. So participants that are more efficient with this problem showed more levels of getting it incorrect, because I prioritize getting it faster instead of actually doing the problem correctly. So this shows that overall, the model has its benefits because it does show reliable evidence, like the Wason selection test. It does show that we generally do divert to System 1 thinking, and it's also effective at explaining common systemic errors that can happen when we're going through daily life. But there are weaknesses, and the most obvious one is that it reduces cognitive thinking to just two systems, which is quite a reductionist approach to thinking about thinking in general, because certain context clues and situations can also influence the way a person is thinking. So to be able to categorize them into just System 1 and System 2 is quite an oversimplification of the whole cognitive model. And then also one commercial application of this is, maybe you walk into a store and you need to make a split-second financial decision, and on the spot you look at something and you really like it, and you don't really think about the long-term consequences of the amount that you're spending. but then when you go home and you do have the time to think about it, you realize that you've made like a major dent in your budget and you actually can't afford what you've bought. That'd be an example of system 1 versus system 2 thinking, where the time allotted really contributes to the outcome of the situation. So that's really everything for dual processing theory.